Winter can wreak havoc on your skin. Hey, it's Kayla, and it's not just the weather, but as a new mom, I've seen my skin change in ways that I'm not too happy about. But that's where the Skin Center has you covered. Their most popular treatment is Botox because they're the best at it. They've been ranked a top 10 provider in the nation by Allergan Aesthetics, the makers of Botox. And their best facial is what I got. It's the HydraFacial. It exfoliates, extracts, and hydrates all at once. So save your skin from these winter blues and DM at the Skin Center MD on Instagram and mention code Kayla to get $100 off your first Botox or filler treatment or any skincare package.
You can have your prescriptions brought to your door with 1 to 2 day delivery from your local CVS. Get same-day delivery or just swing by and pick them up on the way home from the doctor. While you're here, get your questions answered and put your mind at ease, because there are still some things that you just can't get in a cardboard box. That's how healthier happens together with CVS. Not all prescriptions eligible for delivery. Restrictions apply. Visit cvs.com/delivery for details.
Welcome to the Hypothalamic Amenorrhea podcast. I'm Danny Sheriff, your host, certified fertility awareness practitioner, functional nutrition counselor, and founder of the HA Society, and of course, an HA recovery coach who has walked where you currently are walking. This is the place to come if you care about getting your period regularly. This podcast aims to educate, inform, and keep you motivated on your period and HA recovery track. So let's dive in. But last thing, nothing on the show should be taken as medical advice, so please seek the advice of your physician. We have been working with women one-on-one to get their periods back for well over a year, and it's been really effective. We strongly believe that you need a individualized, custom recovery protocol that goes across nutrition, lifestyle, mindset, exercise, the whole thing. And we believe in that a lot. We're not really willing to waver from that. But what we have been doing up until now is only offering video-based coaching. And we've been hearing from you guys that that's great, but doesn't work for everyone. So we want to implement this new trial of email-based only coaching. So no scheduling, no Zoom calls. It's all through email. We do a weekly check-in, so you'll send us an email once a week with all of your details, what was working, what's not working. We'll make tweaks and changes to the plan. We'll also get you on track with learning to use the fertility awareness method to track progress. You'll get a customized program. We'll be basically holding your hand through the whole process, and you'll also be able to chat with us as much as you want, or to your assigned coach as much as you need in between these weekly official check-ins. So who is email-based coaching for? It's for anyone who is going through HA recovery, trying to get their period back. It's for anyone who has had a recovery period or 2 or 3 and is looking for help optimizing or getting pregnant or getting back to training and trying to ensure that training isn't getting in the way of their menstrual cycle. We're all about custom goals here, and everyone's an individual and everyone's life is individual. And so we want to work with you to reach whatever goal you have in a way that works with your lifestyle and your mindset, all while helping you to have a solid, healthy relationship with food, with your body, with your exercise. That's our whole mission. So if that's your mission, come and join us. We'd love to work with you at thehasociety.com/coaching. Go there, hit buy now, get started, and I'll immediately send you your intake forms, and we can get started with your goals right away. So that's thehasociety.com/coaching. Cool. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the HA podcast. We have everyone's favorite type of episode today, a recovery story, a guest coming on to share her experience with HA and how she overcame it and the journey and all of the wonderful things that come on the other side of it and all the hard things that happen in between. So I'm excited to be introducing you guys to Kirsten. Kirsten is a member of the HA Society, so I got to sort of get to know her a lot because she comes to most Saturday calls and shares. And I think the coolest thing about having you, hello, there with us is because you often speak a lot of valuable things to a lot of people. People really get a lot of help out of your contributions into the call. So I'm excited to be inviting you on for the listeners to get a little taste of that. So welcome.
Well, thank you.
Tell me, first of all, are we open to sharing your like personal information, as in like your first name, last name, where people can find you, that kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. Some people keep their stuff anonymous, but anyways, so we have Kirsten McDaniel, and she will, y'all should go and find her after the show and like add her and chat with her because she's awesome. But anyways, please introduce yourself a bit more to the listeners. Who are you? Where do you live? About your family?
Sure. I'm Kirsten. I am 35 years old and I live close to Nashville, Tennessee. I live in Murfreesboro. I'm from Virginia, but we have been in Tennessee for 10 years and my kids were born here. So I think that makes me honorarily from Tennessee, maybe. Mm-hmm. And yeah, my kids are 8, 6, and 4. And we have 1 dog, 3 chickens. I have my husband, Matthew. We've been married for 14 years. It'll be 15 years next year.
That's so good. I'm interested. I haven't been to Tennessee, but I'm curious to check it out. Seems like a cool place to live. And I also feel weird being, am I on honorary Texan because I have a Texan child now?
Yeah, I think that's maybe how it works. Weird.
It's very surreal to me to be like an Australian and my husband's a Californian and we have a Texan. It's just super weird. Like you just wouldn't think that would ever happen to you, but okay.
Yeah. Well, wild.
Welcome to the show. So some people might be wondering like, well, you have these like 3 kids, like what's your story going to be with HA? And I think it's always interesting to get sort of people who caught a case of the HA at like different stages in their life, because we listen to a lot of people who had it like early 20s before they had kids. The point of recovery was to have kids. Your story's just different. So will you take us, I guess, from wherever you believe it begins? And just go from there.
Sure. Okay. So my youngest, my daughter, when she was about 1.5 years old, this was in the beginning of 2019. So back in the olden days, pre-pandemic life, when she was about 1.5 years, we knew we were done having kids. And she was getting near the end of her time breastfeeding. And typically, I actually, with all 3 of my kids, did not get my period back for about 18 months postpartum while I was nursing. It just was the way it was with all of them. It was just my body. But prior to having kids, prior to any of this, I had very normal periods, extremely predictable. Every single month, 30 days, I could always predict. I knew exactly when it was coming, my ovulation. I never had a single concern. And for the most part, I was never on birth control. We had all of our kids. When we decided we wanted to try to have kids, we just started trying and then got pregnant fairly easily. So all of the fertility stuff was never an issue. It was never even in my mind whatsoever to even have on my radar that anything would ever be wrong with my fertility, because it had always been so ideal. And other than that, I didn't really have any other health issues either. I was never on any medications, didn't have any blood pressure, cholesterol, no other concerns, but I had 3 kids in pretty close succession. And prior to having kids, I would say my BMI was always in the overweight range from the time that I was young, like middle school, high school, on until adulthood, but my weight was very consistent. It was always the same. I didn't really gain, I didn't really lose. It always stayed about the same. And I felt fine with it. I actually wasn't super bothered. I felt okay. I ate, pretty intuitively. Okay, so then I had my 3 kids, pretty close succession, and I was sitting about 30 pounds above where I felt comfortable, where I had been before having my daughter. And I wanted to just start losing weight. And prior to that, I had never like deliberately pursued sort of a diet and exercise regime before. I had just kind of naturally let my body do what it needed to do while I was having kids and breastfeeding. So, but since I knew I was done, I was like, okay, I'm going to follow some kind of plan. And I was like, well, let me see what's out there. And cause I had never really done this deliberately. So I was like, let me download my Fitness Pal, which I feel like is something a lot of people do because it's free. And then I was like, okay, well, plug in my height, 5'4", plug in my weight. Okay. And plug in my goal. Okay, it says you should eat 1,200 calories, which I think is the recommendation.
Did it really?
Because I said I think I said I wanted to lose
rapid weight loss.
Yeah, I think I said maybe a pound a week, or I can't remember, but because of my height, it calculated that my resting metabolic rate was however many calories a day, and said that I should eat 1,200, and then that wasn't calculating back in any exercise that I would do, obviously, but that's where it set me at. So I was like, okay, well, that doesn't seem, because I was like, that doesn't seem too crazy because I won't have to do this forever. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to work out also. So I started paying for Beachbody because I wanted to do it at home. And so when I started, that's what I did. I did 1,200 calories a day. I worked out for 30 minutes a day. That was all I did at first. And it worked. Like, it worked pretty quickly. I was losing weight. I didn't feel super restrictive at first. I didn't feel like deprived because I was still eating all the things I wanted. I was just eating them in smaller portions. So I didn't really feel like I was missing out on anything. And then as time started wearing on, so I lost the 30 pounds that I wanted to lose. This was between March and July. So I lost about the 30 pounds that I wanted. And I was like, well, I've developed these habits. I feel pretty good. I like the way that I look and I feel pretty confident. And so I'm just going to keep on doing what I'm doing and just see where my body sort of lands. And at that time, I was not doing any weights yet because I hadn't bought any. So all the workouts I was doing were cardio. So that was still just 30 minutes a day though. So then as time progressed on, I started realizing, you know what, I'm pretty hungry. Like when it comes to the end of the day, I'm still hungry, but I've run out of calories. So what should I do? And then came in the intermittent fasting because, it seemed like, I'm not super hungry in the morning. And, if I just wait till noon to eat my first meal and then eat in that eating window, and then dinner is my last meal of the day, so I stop eating by 7, then I don't really go to bed hungry anymore, and I feel fine doing that. It's not really a big deal to me to skip breakfast. And so it didn't seem extreme at first. I think that's the way that it's so sneaky, is that none of it seems extreme to just like say it like, oh, this doesn't seem crazy. And then you start doing it and you're okay for a while, but not forever. So yeah, that was after July. So that was sort of the second half of 2019, the second piece of it. And by October, I was adding in weights. I had bought a weight set. So I was doing workouts that included weights and different things still on Beachbody, still doing 1,200 calories, moving quite a lot, doing probably close to 20,000 steps a day, between 14,000 and 20,000 steps a day. And, by the end of 2019, though, I felt good. I had lost 50 pounds total by the end of 2019. And my hormones were still okay then. And I still felt okay. But then it was sort of the beginning of 2020 when I started seeing the pieces kind of showing up in weird ways. So February 2020, I had my first late period, which was really, really like unusual. Well, I will say at the end of 2019, this is something I forget, but then I remember, and now I think it may be a HA thing. The end of 2019, my period started coming exactly at like 28 days, whereas they had always been about 30. they were coming like exactly at 28. And I thought, well, this must mean they're super optimized, because 28 days is like what people say a cycle is. And I guess they're really, but now I think maybe they were getting shorter at first. And that may have been a sign that I wasn't really cluing into. But then in February 2020, I had my first late period, which was really surprising to me. I was like, wow, it was like, I feel like it was like maybe 10 or 11 days late, which doesn't seem crazy to some people. But for me, when it was always so regular, that was like, oh, this is weird.
It's pretty late.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think a lot of people maybe have, I don't know, normalized having unusual periods, but now I see that
I just have irregular periods.
Yeah, I just have irregular periods, but I think that it's something, your body is telling you something. So I had gone to the doctor then, and they knew, you know, like I said, then I was maintaining, I hadn't lost any additional weight, you know, between probably like November and February, I was at the same, and that weight was exactly within the normal range for someone who's 5'4". So I was not shredded. I was not super lean. I wasn't underweight. I was literally maybe 3 pounds away from being considered overweight. Like, I was not in any body that a doctor would look at and say, you are unwell. Like, they would look at me and say, you're healthy, which was what they did when I went into the doctor and said, my period is late. And they said, that's, you know, it's not a big deal. And then when it did come, I was like, well, okay. And then I ended up not having a period at all in March of 2020, but that was right when COVID hit. So I kind of excused it away, and it was like, well, it must be stress, because now everybody's home and the world is upside down. And I think that may have been because, you know, HA is underfueling, over exercise, and stress. It's a combination. And so that last piece of the pandemic stress could have been the last little tipping point of the scale to like push me in. But yeah, I didn't have a period in March, did not have a period in April 2020. Then in May 2020, I did get a period, but I had gained a couple of pounds, pandemic, between March and April. I had gained a little bit of weight, and I sort of like panicked, because I was like, well, I don't want to gain weight. Like, I've worked so hard and made a lot of sacrifices. I don't want to gain weight. And so I sort of doubled down on, I'm going to be really strict on my diet, make sure I really stick to this calories, increase my movement even more, 2-a-day workouts, you know. And that was into June 2020. And I didn't have a period in June 2020. And from then on, it was gone. Like, it did not return until I deliberately started to try to get it back. So yeah, that's sort of my story of developing HA. And in that time frame, I did see my regular OBGYN in April of 2020. And I told her everything, and she knew everything. And she basically checked me for PCOS, and then said, if you don't get a period in 3 months, you can do a Provera challenge, and you should bleed. And then if you bleed after that, you should just get back into a rhythm, and your body should be fine. So come back and see me if you don't bleed in 3 months. So that was the response when I went to the doctor in April of 2020 and said, hey, for 2 months now, I haven't had a period. And she knew all the habits, and she knew my weight loss, and she knew all of that, but it was never brought up as like a possible thing. She just did an ultrasound for PCOS and tested my hormones, but was only looking for hormone markers for PCOS. She didn't test my, my LH, my FSH,
looking for evidence of the specific.
Yes,
thing
right.
She wants it to be, yeah.
Yeah. And I think she checked me for pregnancy too, which I wasn't, obviously.
Isn't that fun? I think so many people listening are just like, the doctor, mine just made me, she's like, just pee in this cup. I'm just going to check, because maybe my tests are just better. It's like, I have not just been pregnant for like 7 years.
Yeah, right. And my husband, like, she knows my husband had a vasectomy, and I'm like, look.
And you've had 3 kids before, like, you know when you're
right.
pregnant.
I would know. Yeah. I'm like, I think I would know, but okay, go ahead and check. And I like my doctor. She's been my doctor for,
it's just a funny little thing.
9 years. Like, she's been my doctor since I was pregnant with my oldest. So she's known me a long time.
Yeah. It's just a funny little thing.
Yeah, it's so funny. But yeah, that was my development of it. And and how it began.
Okay. So what at what moment did you realize what was actually happening?
So it took a while. So I went through basically the second half of 2020, June to December, just, I think, developing every HA symptom one by one,
Nice.
slowly but surely, realizing, I did realize my hair was falling out prior to losing my period. And I did have my doctor check my thyroid, which was normal, because I was like, my hair is falling out. And they were like, because you can see I have a decent amount of hair, and even still, it's not as thick as it was. And my hair was long. And so I think they looked at it and were like, your hair looks fine. But I know that it was falling out. So then I had actually lost additional weight through the second half of 2020 and was really pushing very hard, but seeing the symptoms coming up one by one. And by, I think it was November of 2020, I finally was like, I need to do this Provera challenge, whatever she said. I need to do this because I haven't bled yet. So I did it in November, and of course I didn't bleed. And I was like, well, she said that was bad, so I should go back to her. So I went back to her in December 2020, and she was like, that is bad. And then at that point did not run labs again, which I don't know why, but didn't run labs, didn't even say HA, nothing. She was like, well, you last had a period when you were about 10 pounds heavier, so you should gain about 10 pounds back, and you should probably get your period. But in the meantime, I'm going to put you on a month of birth control because you need to be bleeding. And if you don't bleed after that, then we really have a problem and you need to come back. And I was like, oh, well, okay. And she never said HA, never said anything about that it might be under fueling, over exercise. She just mentioned gaining 10 pounds, which didn't like really compute with me, because I was like, okay, but even then that was my period was starting to get weird at 10 pounds heavier. So I was like, okay. And I had, like I said, I was never on birth control before, and I really didn't want to be on it. And I knew I was having all these other symptoms, that right. I was peeing all of the time. My nails were breaking. I was cold. I was depressed, no sex drive at all. And I thought, I'm just depressed because of this pandemic and being home, and now it's winter, and maybe I'm just depressed. But then the more and more, and I'm like, but I don't have my period, and I'm so tired. Like sometimes went to do my workouts and like couldn't even like lift my legs. And I was like, this, I am, and at my physical, my cholesterol had come up as high, and I was like, why would that be high? Because I'm eating the healthiest I've ever eaten. I'm moving more than I've ever been moving, and this doesn't make any sense. And I couldn't really process it all. And that's when I just started looking it up myself, because I was like, something is not right. This does not make sense. There must be something to this. Do you feel
like if your doctor had been like, had kind of taken you through a sort of a lifestyle question there, like had sat back and said, oh, okay, how much are you eating? How much are you working out? How are you feeling at the moment about like stress? And like kind of, I notice it helps a lot of people to have this other person just present to you your life.
Yeah.
Because people, for some reason, especially as we add things one at a time, we don't seem to connect very quickly that it's like, it's the way we're living our life.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the thing was, I told her everything I was doing, and she knew, and she said, are you training for a show? Like a fitness competition? And I was like, no. And it really like surprised me, because I didn't think that the things I was doing were that crazy. But then when I told my husband that, he was like, Kirsten, do you realize the doctor thinks that you're doing behaviors that are enough to be training for a fitness competition? Like,
yeah. And it makes sense. Like the doctors just don't, they've heard about it at some conference or in class or wherever they heard about it. And with these, like, you'll typically see it in these people.
Yeah.
Right. And so that in between, it's hard for them to spot that you're actually also falling into that category.
Yeah. I think that's why she was asking. She asked me a lot if I had an eating disorder. She asked me multiple times. She said, are you throwing up? Are you eating? And I was like, I'm not throwing up. I'm like, I am eating. Like, I'm eating. I'm just eating this amount of food in this like
the other thing that
time.
also makes it hard for doctors is because a lot of them also, think that a low calorie diet is also healthy. Like that like what you're doing is actually not a problem. So this is weird. Yeah.
Yep. So that was the point where I was like, this was December of 2020. And I was just like, this has to have a name. This has to have a diagnosis. My visitor has come in again.
Very good.
Iris is here, my youngest. Anyway.
She's always popping into pretty much every call you're ever on.
She likes to say hello. Well, you can close the door as long as you sit quietly, okay? So that was when I just started Googling, and I think I just listed my symptoms on Google, listed no period, and then something about hypothalamic amenorrhea came up. And I was like, well, I was reading it, and I think it was one of the pages, the first ones that come up, they tend to say like in underweight individuals or in athletes. And I was like, I'm not underweight, and you have to be quiet, okay? Okay, you can't talk. I was like, I'm not underweight and I'm not an athlete. And I was like, but I have all these symptoms and it's the only thing that really makes sense. And I need to look further into this. That's basically how it started.
Yeah. You just have like a moment where you're like, maybe I'm just super sensitive. Like maybe this is me and my body's just really sensitive. And I do have HA. Like, the seed gets planted and then begins the inner conversation of like, no, can't be me. But yeah. Okay. So you started looking into it, and at some point we're like, yeah, this makes sense. This is me. Was it very black and white? I feel like, oh, okay, now I need to solve this, or what? Yeah. Was it easy? Was it hard? What did you have to do specifically for yourself?
Yeah. So I think it was hard in the beginning. It was very hard to accept. Yeah. Okay. It was hard to accept in the beginning. It was hard for me to admit that was the problem, and also to recognize that I was going to have to change habits, change the sort of identity that I had built over almost 2 years, of working out, of something I was very proud of. Okay, go ahead. And something I was super proud of, and something I was like talked, people were complimenting me left and right. Stop. Hold on. Wait.
Are you listening to this show hoping to get some golden nuggets to help you on your way to recovery? Well, great. I hope that you find them, because that is exactly what this show is for. But if you really want to take your recovery all the way, completely commit and get on track with your goals, whether they be finally feeling overall healthy, finally getting pregnant, or finally getting back to training, you'll want to join us inside of the HA Society. Not only is this the perfect community to ask questions and get your support and the accountability that you so often need during these uphill battles with body image and understanding nutrition and incorporating exercise, but it's also a hub of exclusive resources for HAers. All of the HA podcast episodes are released in advance and completely ad-free, so you can listen on the go to the raw, unedited versions uninterrupted. All of the one-on-one coaching calls, of which we have 2 a week in different time zones, are uploaded to our private podcast feed so that you can listen to events with practitioners and the past community calls as though they were bonus podcast episodes, because I know how much you love to listen to this kind of stuff. And in these calls, we cover requested topics like overcoming the weight gain fears, communicating with friends and family about our HA, diving into how HA works, and debunking the imposter syndrome that so many of us have around this diagnosis. There's also an entire resources section with lectures, workshops, and training from the past events that are hosted by experts like Sarah Liz King, Laura Lyons, Kaylee McDevitt, Holly Dunn, and many more. As a member, you also get direct access to myself and Coach Ashley in the DMs. So if you have personal questions or need individualized advice about your recovery, we're in there answering your questions in the DMs, as are all of our other members in the group who impress me week after week with how they show up for each other It's incredible. It's like women are just all becoming mini coaches for each other. It's so good. The HA Society is really the place to be if you're going through recovery, no matter what stage you're at. Whether you have HA or you've got a few recovery periods, we have your back and we're all your new best friends. So come and meet us at thehasociety.com/join. That's thehasociety.com/join, and the link is in the show notes for you. Okay, on with the show.
Okay, I've returned. Okay. So, yeah, it was very difficult because people were very, as you know, in general, people are very, very complimentary when you lose weight. You're doing the thing that you're supposed to do. Like after you have kids, I had a lot of praise, compliments, and from well-meaning people who knew me, people who loved me and cared about me, and people who are my friends, and also like people who didn't even know me, people saying that I looked younger than I ever had, people saying that I just looked so healthy, how was I doing it, that I looked so strong, people asking me for advice. And it was very, very difficult to admit that I would have to. Okay, if you want. What? I want to talk. You can't. It was very. I'll tell you something. Hold on.
Does she know that thousands of women are going to listen to everything that you
people
say?
Are going to hear you.
I'm gonna go upside down.
Hold on. Let's put you out here. Hold on. Yeah. So that was my whole. I think, struggle in the beginning. I think it's a struggle for a lot of women, is just saying, I'm going to have to give this up. I'm going to have to change a lot of things. And I'm going to have to, like, for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to be going back to this body. And I've made so many sacrifices. This has become something that I've worked so hard for, and I don't want to give it up. I don't want to stop at all. Like, I was not fully like diving in, head first, like, okay, I'm going to get my period back. But at the same time, I recognized that I could not let it get worse. Like, I could not, like, I was like, how much worse does this have to be before I do something? Because I recognized there's nothing, like, nobody else can fix this for me. Like, there's not a pill I can take. There's not anything I can do. I just have to figure out how to fix this on my own. And that was frustrating too, is because so many things you feel like, well, I can just take a pill. I can just, like, it was very tempting to say, go back to the doctor and just be like, okay, give me a pill to fix this, because she had said that's what she would do. Because I had done a month of birth control and I didn't bleed. So I was like, I could go back to her and just say, okay, I didn't bleed, what now? And maybe I could avoid having to do all the other things, which I think is something that I see in a lot of women on the message boards. And it's something I see a lot of women saying, is that there has to be another way. Can't I just take this? My doctor says, just take this. My doctor just says, do that. And if I just do that, won't that solve it? And the reality is that it won't solve it, because you'll still have HA. You would just be masking the symptoms of your HA, or doing some protection of your bones, but you won't be solving the problem. And you will still be a person who is under fueling and over exercising and putting your body under a lot of stress, which is still the, like, point of the problem,
Yeah, this is good. This is like, if there actually was a pill or something that would help, I wouldn't be like lying and pretending to all of you people listening, that's just not existent and it's not the right way to do things. If there was something like that that would help, I would honestly tell you that. But we talk about it needing to be rest and energy surplus, proper nutrition, proper just like giving your body what it needs. We talk about that because that is the truth. That is the answer. And every single time someone's like, well, my doctor says my labs are looking good, or the ultrasound shows that I have a solid, like I do have a uterine lining. They want me to take Provera. They want me to do the progesterone challenge. This is the most common one. Or they want me to go back on the pill. Like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? The answer is never going to be like, oh, okay, well, for you, that makes sense. It's never going to be that. If you want to take those things, do it for the fact that it will give you information. And that's all it does. It's a test to see like if something happens, but there's no magic pill. And we all need to like understand that there's no one listening is special, is like a special unicorn where there's a pill for them, but not for everyone else. I like that.
Yeah, that was, I think, a lot of the realization as I just started the basic research in the very beginning, and the things I was learning in the very, very beginning, was that I think some women jump into it and say, I want to fix this 100%, I'm going to do it. But I think most that I've met and talked to, and in my own experience, say, well, let me figure this out. Do I really have to do this?
Yeah, let me try other things first. And I did that. I have zero judgment to anyone who does that. I think that's just how we work.
Yeah, exactly. So that was when I started my research, and I reached out to a friend of mine. She's a nutritionist and a dietitian.
Mommy, I want to watch it.
Go ahead. Her name is Krista Smith, and
Right here.
I can give her information too. And she's wonderful, wonderful. But I knew her in person, and
I don't know what's on next.
it's in the other room by the TV. Go plug in there.
Okay.
But yeah, she works with a lot of athletes, and she is here in the United States. She's located in Ohio, but I was able to work with her virtually, and she does take insurance, so that was really helpful. And basically I told her everything that was going on, and she was like, yeah, you need to eat more food, and you have to take down your exercise. And she's like, the recommendation is that you would eat 2,500 calories. And I was like, yeah, I can't do that. Like, I'm not ready. Like, I can't just, I was like, I can't. And she was like, okay, that's fine. We'll just work on increasing your calories every week, but the first thing to do is to stop the intermittent fasting. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. That's easy. I can stop intermittent fasting. So that was in the beginning of 2021. January, February, I stopped intermittent fasting right away. I was just eating breakfast, but I was still counting my calories, still working out every day. And I lowered my calories.
Mommy, which one?
It's by the light in the other room. I took my calories and my exercise to less exercise, more calories, but not straight in, all in, you know what I mean? Not no exercise, not 2,500 calories right away. But I mean, my body right away was responding. It was responding with, it was responding with my sleep improving right away. My sleep improved right away. And then I had more energy right away. And it was pretty clear right away that my body was doing better things, but I was also gaining weight right away. So of course I was freaking out immediately. And I think that I went through what a lot of people want to do, is they just don't want to do it anymore. They want to stop because you don't know how long it's going to take. I think a lot of the issue in the beginning was me saying, how long is this going to take? Because at that point I had been without a period for 6 months, and which is not that long now that I've met a lot of people with HA compared to some people. But it was a long time for me, and I felt bad enough that in other ways. And I remembered, feeling good, which is, I think, a point that I make to a lot of.
Now.
So there was a lot of people in the groups who have had HA for so long that they forget what it feels like to be normal, I think. So I had not forgotten what it feels like to be normal yet. So I still remembered, feeling better. I remembered having a sex drive. I remembered times where I just wasn't freezing all the time. I wasn't peeing all the time. I was sleeping and had energy and, you know, a lot more effortless relationship with food and movement in my body and less stress and everything. And I had all that in my recent enough memory that it was a good motivation to be like, I want that again. But it was very, very hard. The beginning part, I think, is the hardest part, because that's when you constantly are like, okay, when is this going to happen? How long is it going to take? What does my body need me to do? I don't want to change all these habits all at once. Like, it's very, very mentally exhausting. And that's why I try to talk it through with a lot of other women, because like, it's hard. It's super hard.
Yeah, mentally exhausting is a good word for it.
Yeah, it's just a lot to process at once, and to just believe and trust that your body is going to respond when it's ready to respond, when you have fueled it enough, when you have given it what it needs to have healthy hormones and for your hypothalamus to work again. And just trusting that if you just do these things, it's going to happen, but it's not going to happen in any specific time frame. It's going to happen when it happens.
Yeah. And it's kind of like it doesn't have to have any more meaning than that, right? Once it has what it needs, it will do the job. It doesn't mean good or bad or whatever.
It's not because like, it's not, and it doesn't correlate to how long you've had it, how short you've had, how long you've had HA, how, you know, it doesn't correlate to a lot of different things. It's just,
it correlates to what you were deficient in what you need, and how soon your hypothalamus feels like this is consistent enough. This is like, there's so much to it that we just don't really understand, but I think that we can completely just deduce, right, that there's an individual physiology of everyone that is unique, and that must be honored.
Exactly. I think that's the part that I think stressed me out probably the most in the beginning, was just the unknown. But Krista gave me really good recommendations. She was awesome at giving me things to eat, you know, saying like, how can you add things to your meals? Adding fats to your meals. She's like, I want half your plate to be, you know, a carbohydrate, and I want you to have a fat with every meal, and, you know, have your protein. But of course, before, as a lot of people are eating mostly protein, she wanted it to be, she's like, and it can be whatever carbohydrates you want. It can be potatoes, it can be rice, it can be quinoa, it can be squash, it can be bread, it can be fruit. You don't have to think of it as like, well, I'm just gonna like this. I think the thing that frustrates me the most is I see a lot of women that are like, well, I'm not going to go the completely opposite direction and just ruin my health. And I'm like, okay, first of all, having HA is not good. Like, that is bad for your health. It's bad for your bones. It's bad for your heart. It's bad not to have a sex drive in general. I would say most women enjoy having a sex drive to some degree. It's bad for your sleep. It's bad for your cortisol levels to have HA. So I'm like, it's not, you're not healthy now. I'm like, what you are now is in a smaller body, most likely, than you were, or a smaller body than you will have when you're recovered. At least to say that, like, you will have a larger body to some degree when you recover from HA, and that's what you're afraid of. You're not really afraid of ruining your health. You're afraid of gaining weight. And that's what I was afraid of. And I think that's when people say, well, I'm afraid of what this is going to do to my health. What they really mean is, I'm afraid that I'm going to gain weight. And
more often than not.
Yeah. I would say that to the people who feel that, I also understand that feeling, but I'm thankful in a way that I had lived in a heavier body before that was healthy. Obviously, my heavier body gave me 3 children. My heavier body could do all the things I wanted to do. My heavier body had good labs. Like, I didn't have health issues in a heavier body. And my health issues came when I overexercised and I underfueled, but I was living in a conventionally attractive, societally approved body.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, the biggest takeaway for me. And for a lot of women who have maybe had HA for such a long time that they don't know where their body is going to go, my response would be, wherever your body goes, when you are fueling correctly and exercising in a way that your body can like sustain a period, like wherever your body ends up under those conditions is a healthier body than the smaller body you're in when you're under fueling and over exercising, you know? And I think that that's the main takeaway that I got from everything, is just that, you know, you can eat plenty of fruits and vegetables as you're recovering from HA. I did, like, I recovered from HA, and for some women, you recover from HA allowing all the foods that you haven't had for years. You know, you need to eat the ice cream just so that you're not a prisoner to ice cream. Like, you need to eat the peanut butter so that peanut butter isn't a binge food for you anymore. That peanut butter just becomes neutral. Food. Yeah. It's just a food. It's just food that you eat. And eventually you will just come to a place where food is just food, and it takes some amount of time. Who knows how long it will take each individual person, but the sooner that you sort of open up the freedom, and the sooner that I, like, for myself, that I open back up my diet instead of thinking of all the replacements that I could make and all the things that I could take away. Instead of doing that, the quicker that I said, okay, let's add back in full fat dairy, let's add back in real peanut butter instead of peanut butter powder, you know, let's add back in real noodles instead of zoodles. Like, the quicker that I did that, and the sooner that I was ready to do that, I think it was better for my mental health, honestly, than just dragging it out. But it was still a process. It still took, for me, it took 4 months till my first recovery period from when I started recovering. So
yeah, and 4 months is just, that's a solid amount of time. Like, it's a long time. It's also not a crazy long time. It's just, that's just how long it took. End of story. That was your reality. And, you know, because you took your own unique path to getting there, which was like working with Krista, making some changes, introducing more changes, like discovering things about yourself that you like were putting labels on things, you know, that are good or bad or better or worse, and slowly breaking that down. So congrats, very awesome. And you're on period number what now? Like
6. I just finished my 6th one. And like we've talked about a lot in the group, I'm still working on getting them back to, you know, normal every 30-day cycle. I'm still dealing with weirdly long follicular phases and very normal luteal phases. And all my recovery periods have been different lengths, but I think they've been like, you know, 43 days, 39 days, 41 days. This last one was 37 days or 36 days. So it's up and down, and it's still a process. Like, it didn't go from no period to like every 30 days regular perfect. And I think that's another thing. A lot of women freak out because they're like, oh, I've had one recovery period, but now it's, you know, 50 days and I haven't had my second. What do I do? Well, you just keep doing what you're doing until it comes.
Keep doing what you're doing. If like, just keep checking in. Are you doing all the things? Are older habits slipping back in? Because I think, you know, we're kind of figuring out with you that you're having these like long follicular phases, these delayed ovulations, and there's probably something happening each month to month that's like making it change, but you're like slowly narrowing down on what that is. And
and I've had to, you know, take down my exercise, take away exercise, you know, change my sleeping patterns, you know, I took out all caffeine when I started recovering my period completely. I think it's just a learning curve and a process where you just say, like, what does my body need? And I think maybe it's a misconception is that a lot of people, you know, I think women with HA, we are a lot of type A people, and we like rules and structure, and we like predictability, and we like to have control. So we like the idea that's like, okay, I will eat 2,500 calories. I will stop my exercise. Therefore, I will get my period. And then after 3 very normal recovery periods, I will start my exercise again, and everything will be okay. And that is not true. It has not been true in my experience, and it has not been true for, I would say, most of the women that I have met.
It's highly individual. Individual. Exactly.
It's not just like A equals B equals C. Like, we want an equation. We want this to be, we just want it to be something, because like exactly with diet, you know, people want it to be like, if I eat this many calories and exercise this much, I will lose this much weight. And then I can just go back to eating how I was, and my body will just stay smaller. And that's not true either. And it's the same for HA recovery, is that, yes, you can do all the things, and you may not get a period for this amount of time. Who knows when you will? And then once you do have one, after you've had 3, it doesn't mean you can jump back in, because your body might really not like that. If you just go straight back to doing what you were doing before, that quickly. And, you know, I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I've read a lot of articles. For me, like, just hearing other stories really helps. And I've heard other women say, like, they had to take a break from sort of intense exercise for even a year because their body was just too sensitive. And in the beginning, I was like, well, that sounds insane. But now that I've had a lot more time and met a lot more people, I'm like, well, that definitely makes sense that could be the case, because I think the body is very sensitive for longer than we think, just because the body wouldn't have shut down its reproductive system if it wasn't under a lot of stress. Like, your body didn't do that just like for fun. Like, it's kind of a lot.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Like, it didn't just do that like because it could.
Right.
It did it because it had to.
Yeah, exactly. It it had to keep your heart beating and your lungs working. So it had to shut down your entire reproductive system, and your hypothalamus stopped talking to your body, which is bad. So that's kind of how I think of it. Like, my body wouldn't have done it if it didn't have to. And it's a very protective function of your body. And so if my body felt like it was under that much attack and it was in that much danger, then it's going to take a lot of reassuring and a lot of care to get it back to a place where I can move my body in the ways that I want to move it without sending myself straight back into HA, which I don't want to do. I don't aspire to be that way again, because I still feel like, you know, I'm still getting better every day, and I don't want to put myself back in a position where I'm bad again, you know?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I love it. I think that it's refreshing to, you know, have stories and people come on and talk about the fact that, like, it's not necessarily just I started eating and I got my period back and then it was like happy days. It's, you know, I started doing this, I took a long time, I researched, I dipped my toe in, I dipped it in further, I walked up to my waist, and then, you know, I did the thing and I had all these realizations, and I'm still in the thing, and it's okay. Like, I'm getting your period back's like the halfway point, maybe, you know, and then there's optimizing it, getting it back to a healthy functioning place. And the reality is this takes time, and we need to stop putting so much pressure on our body to get healthy. Like, we put so much pressure on our body before to, you know, get your body back after having a kid, to lose all this weight and to just be all the things to everyone. And the reality is, for you as well, there was probably added stress of like, have the perfect body, be the perfect mom, be the perfect wife, and handle it all in a pandemic while everyone's in the house 24/7. Like, that shit, there's nothing you can do about that, right? Like, that part's out of your control. So you have to have patience and grace for yourself that the process is going to take as long as it's going to take. And now you have your period and just working on getting it back, and the process is going to get it back to like the date range, the amount of days you want it to be, the different phases to be optimal. That's going to take as long as it's going to take, as long as you're always moving forward and not letting yourself run back in the other direction. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, I think that's just what a lot of women need, that kind of encouragement, just to be reminded, like, if you're doing the things and you know that you're doing it, and you're doing the resting and the fueling and eliminating your stress as much as you can, and looking at your sleep and all the things that you are prioritizing. If you're doing those things, then you're working towards health, and it may take a while. It's just, and even when you're, you know, on the other side of it, I think a lot of the frustration that I see is my own too, is that, okay, I've gained this amount of weight, here I am in this body, and things still aren't right. What else am I supposed to do? Which is super frustrating. And I get it, like, for sure. Like, now I'm sitting in a body that is classed as overweight on the BMI, which is like, it's hard, I would say, to process. Like, it's frustrating in a lot of ways to say like, well, why can't I be in that smaller body? Why did I have to do this? Why did this have to be the way that it was for me? Why does my body need to be at this size to have a period instead of being at the other size? You know, all of that is super frustrating. And to just still be surrounded by the messages that are like, well, you still could lose weight, you know, you can do this, you know, you could lose weight again. You just have to do it a different way. You know, you could just do this or that. And like, sure, you could, but at the same time, do you want to be putting yourself in a position where you're always thinking about food again? Like where that's the only thing that's on your mind, where you're just so concerned about maintaining a certain size? Or is it just about like actually living life, which is kind of the thing that I want to do in the future?
Yeah.
Instead of, so I'm still in that place where it's like, well, here I am now. I don't appear on the outside healthy. Before I did appear on the outside healthy, but no one could see what was going on the inside, and still no one can see what's going on the inside. And I always feel like I'm trying to explain myself now and saying like, no, actually now I'm actually healthier than I was a year ago. You know, a year ago I didn't have a period, and now I do. And now I'm 30 pounds heavier and I'm actually healthier, which is so, I feel like in where we live, it sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But
it's a whole other
true.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that in at least a generation or two to come, this is a more known thing, and people have like more realistic expectations of themselves, and or actually just no expectations of themselves would actually be better. And the expectation was that you lived your life and, you know, you just didn't even, in a perfect world, we wouldn't know what we look like, right? Because we invented cameras and we invented mirrors and we invented all these things that allow us to become so hyper-focused on those things. But in a perfect world, we wouldn't have them, and there's not a lot we can do about it. And you know, everyone taking this path is just doing a big, brave thing, honestly, because it's very easy to just allow yourself, and most people do, just allow yourself to like follow the mold and listen to what is being told to us by the media, which is all bullshit. But where, you know, we, the people listening to this show, you like are actively making a choice to challenge that. And that's I feel like that's where it begins.
Yeah, I think so. I hope for that for my kids, and especially my daughter. Like I want that for them. And you know, that I truly felt like last year, I mean, I have never ever gotten more praise and compliments than when I lost weight. There is nothing else I have done in my life. I cannot, I mean, I've had 3 children. Like there is nothing in my life that people have complimented me more on than losing weight. I have never had a greater achievement in the eyes of the people around me. And that's a bummer. Like that's sad. I think it's a sad indictment on the people. And I'm not even saying that because like, I'm not even just talking about my friends. I'm just talking about strangers, whoever.
Yeah.
And I like my friends and family love me, and I know they do. And they were complimenting me more about that. And I think we should just live in a place where we compliment so many other things about each other. That the greatest thing someone does isn't ever that they lost weight and changed their body into a smaller body, because that is such a fickle thing that will not last a lifetime, that my body is going to continue to change, I assume, for the next 60 years or however many years I'm blessed with on this earth. And I just don't really see a world where I stay this exact same size forever. And I don't think many people do. And so I think it's easier if you just get to a point where you say, I'm going to really focus on the things that matter and are going to matter forever. Because if the greatest thing I ever did was maintain my exact weight and size until I died, that would not be a very satisfying life.
That's a good question to close out on for everyone listening, right? Is like, what do you really want the legacy or whatever you leave behind, or how you touched and impacted other people? Do you really want it to be about how you looked? You know?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yep.
And that will guide you if you just check in with things like that, check in with your why and your impact and your purpose. And when we're not checking in and keeping those things front of mind and having a real like heart to heart with ourselves about why what you're doing in recovery is important, it makes it much harder to keep moving forward every day.
Yeah, it definitely does. But the HA Society has been a huge benefit. I think I joined at the beginning of March, and it's been like, I would say, a place where I felt so much support. And just I feel like a lot of other groups that I have been in, that I was in before, there was a lot of rules. You weren't allowed to say a lot of things. You weren't allowed to post pictures. You weren't allowed to be personal. And I wanted a place where you could really talk about what was actually happening. And I felt like I wasn't finding that till I joined the HA Society. So that's where I've really appreciated that you can really say what you think and what you're experiencing, and you're not going to get deleted, which happened to me in other groups.
Oh yeah.
Posts were deleted, my comments were deleted because they didn't follow some strict guideline about what you were and weren't allowed to say, and you weren't allowed to actually say how you were feeling on a particular day. So I really appreciate the HA Society for that.
That was the thing. When I went into it, I was like, well, how can I make sure it's different to like existing things? And B, let's do an experiment, right? And see like what happens for some people when you're allowed to like just tell the truth.
Yeah.
What happens? And I, fully willing for it to be wrong, fully willing and ready to see like, oh, okay, I see why everyone has all the rules.
Yeah.
Let me do that. But it's been over a year and I haven't needed to bring in any rules around how people talk. Like if certain topics of conversation are triggering for you, then it's just not the place for you. And there's places that censor and create an environment that works for you. But if you're people like us who are happy to be like, this is how many calories I've been eating and I'm doing this much exercise and I still don't have my period, like, what do you think? And that way that's not necessarily triggering other people. It's what now we can all come to you and be like, girl, you are not eating enough. And you like, we can objectively tell you, we don't have to give you some frou-frou answer, because you're giving us the data and we can tell you the truth. And I know I'm going on a rant, but yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of your story. Where can people, come to you and say, your story resonated with me. Thank you so much. Where can people do that?
Yeah, well, I'm in the HA Society, so you can find me in there. And I'm on Instagram is probably the easiest place to message me. So that's just Sir Kirsten. It's SirKirsten, Kirsten McDaniel. You'll find me, but I'm around. I'm easy to find, and I will always engage with people about HA because I really appreciated everyone in the beginning who was able to talk to me. And I think a lot of people maybe stop engaging with the community once they get their period back, which I feel like is a bummer, because the people who've gotten it back are the ones that you need to like.
There's a mix. I feel like, one or two out of every like 10 develop a kind of interest that lasts much longer. And some people come and they get what they need and they go, and that's okay. It's totally okay. But we definitely appreciate the people like you and everyone else in the group who knows who they are, that like stick around to keep advising and keep helping. Those people are very special.
Yeah, I liked having that from in the beginning. So I hope that I can be that for other people, because it is a lonely road if you don't have a community.
You definitely are that for lots of people.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, definitely are. I get a lot of people tell me like, oh, I talked to Kirsten about it. Or like when we have you in the community calls, there's people are always in the comments are just like, yeah, just to like tack on to what Kirsten said, because that really made like, that's what happened with me. And that's how I know that it's wildly helpful to have people with experience coming and sharing. Sounds like you have a little one you need to get to, but thank you so much, guys. Everyone go chat with her if it's something that would be valuable to you. I hope everyone has a really great day, and I'll see you guys next week.
All right, Iris, say bye.
Bye.
Bye, Iris.
Thank you so much for listening today, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you could head to iTunes specifically and leave a rating or review, that would help so much because it makes it easier for other people with HA who are Googling around to find the podcast really easily. So if you do that, you're doing a service to all of the women.
Now is the perfect time to work at Amazon. They are offering hourly jobs with great pay and even include a large sign-on bonus. No matter where you're at in the job market, you can select from a variety of available roles in your area. Join an exciting work environment and be part of a team that brings smiles to customers every day. To find the job that works for you and some extra cash, go to amazon.com/apply. That's amazon.com/apply. Amazon is proud to be an equal opportunity employer.
You can have your prescriptions brought to your door with 1 to 2 day delivery from your local CVS. Get same-day delivery or just swing by and pick them up on the way home from the doctor. While you're here, get your questions answered and put your mind at ease, because there are still some things that you just can't get in a cardboard box. That's how healthier happens together with CVS. Not all prescriptions eligible for delivery. Restrictions apply. Visit cvs.com/delivery for details.